Hello everyone, Bart here. We're all aware about PSAs and what they do to deliver their message. Some of them tend to be catchy, memorable, and sometimes good. But a lot of them go as far as to scare us with messages of taking drugs, smoking, alcohol, drinking and driving, DUIs, wearing a seatbelt, sexual abuse and harassments, STDs, AIDS, the list goes on. And no matter how creative or scary they can be, as well as using characters to deliver the messages, most of them don't come through for some. And they become famous for showing what's happening, but they also become infamous in delivering their message. Yet one of them is a surprisingly decent special that not only has a message about drug abuse, but also something a lot more. And the special is called Cartoon All-Stars to the Rescue. A teen named Michael is taking up drugs such as marijuana, crack cocaine, and smoking to the point of stealing his sister Corey's piggy bank for more money to buy more drugs from his friends. Thus, cartoon characters from Corey's room, and a few others appearing as well, try to teach Michael about the dangers of drugs and saving his life through looking into his past, future, and telling him just to say no. All while a purple smoke tries to bring Michael back to his side to continue taking drugs. The one thing that many people complain about the special is the idea of the special. Even though the special is stating its message to not take drugs, it's also stating that when you take drugs, you see cartoon characters. And that feels sort of wrong for these cartoon icons to talk about something that's too real. Well, first of all, even if Michael seeing these characters is the result of his drug taking, then how to explain the characters popping out in Corey's room? Or Pooh and the Smoke actually having a conversation with Corey? I mean, she's not on drugs, and this is all happening when the parents aren't around. Well, that's one thing I don't have an answer for, and honestly it's better just to leave it as is. But with having the characters talk about drugs, it makes it a unique element in my opinion. It's kind of fascinating to see these animated characters discuss real-life problems and situations that don't happen very often in their own world, and say terms and words that aren't associated with their environment. And this really isn't the first time that cartoon characters go over things in the real world. So having the toons talk about something too real makes them more interesting and somewhat relatable. However, one of the problems I have with this is the continuity of it all. Like, it starts off normal, but then it goes back and forth between reality and fiction with Michael, as the toons show his past and future self, while teaching him about the dangers of drugs. And I know they're trying to do the route that the Christmas Carol did, but with that one, it cuts back to the main character's room in between each visitation, and it happening at night, making the character think it was a dream. But here, it goes all over the place, it rarely cuts back to reality, if that's what you call it, and it happens during the day, unless he was daydreaming, or was he not? It's just all too jumbled. But then, there's lots of things to admire and even be surprised at. One of the huge things about the special is, of course, the appearance of these characters. Most of them were from TV shows of the 80s, but some of the interaction with them is fascinating. And many of these include Winnie the Pooh, Tigger, the Muppet Babies, Kermit, Piggy and Gonzo, Huey, Dewey and Louie, Michelangelo, Garfield, Alvin, Theodore and Simon, Slimer, the Smurfs, Alf, Bugs Bunny, and Daffy Duck. But as great as it is to see these characters under one roof, it's also a problem, being that some of the characters aren't given much time or are hardly used at all. The Smurfs appear in the first few minutes and rarely appear anywhere else. Slimer is very pointless in it. Tigger comes in during the special's one song and nowhere else. Gonzo only appears briefly in one scene, and Daffy is like a last-minute addition. If it was just the characters in the opening, that would be fine, but even with some extra additions, it becomes overkill or pointless for some. Still, it's all enjoyable and fun to witness. Another is the song that plays about halfway through the special called A Million Wonderful Ways to Say No. While not the most catchy or memorable, it is quite upbeat and fun, even for seeing these characters in this one number, in which they tell Michael just to say no to anything that would cause harm to him. And to make this song even better, it was actually made by, and I'm not joking here, Alan Menken and Howard Ashman. Yeah, even though Beauty and the Beast was still in production, they somehow had the time to do a song outside Disney's animation. But wait a minute, some of the characters were from Disney, so why are they here? And is it a coincidence that George C. Scott voiced the villain of this special when he also voiced another villain for a Disney film that came out the same year? And that McDonald's is one of the sponsors behind the special who also produced Disney toys for their Happy Meals? And while Michael Eisner was CEO of Disney at the time, Roy E. Disney headed the animation department, and he also happens to be the executive producer of this special. So in other words, this special is a Disney product. Or it's just a theory I have. and the actors voicing their characters have done a nice job. Ross Bagdasarian voices Alvin and Simon, Jeff Bergman voices Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck, Townshend Coleman voices Dad and Michelangelo, Jim Cummings voices Winnie the Pooh and Tigger, Paul Fusco voices Alf, Danny Goldman voices Brainy Smurf, Janice Carmen voices Theodore, Jason Marsden voices Michael, Don Messick voices Papa Smurf, Lorenzo Music voices Garfield, Lindsay Parker voices Corey, George C. Scott voices Smoke, Lucy Taylor voices Baby Gonzo, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, and Frank Welker voices Slimer and Baby Kermit. As a whole, this special is alright. The characters are fine, the story is okay, the animation is good, and its one song is nice. For being a PSA on drug abuse, even for the early 90s, it's not like any of the other PSAs of the time. If anything, it's pretty tame. But as a cartoon crossover, it's amazing. Seeing these characters in this special and even interacting at times is very nice. It might be all over the place in terms of continuity and such, but I find it all to be delightful. Sure, there are fan arts of a sequel, and maybe its message hasn't gotten to everyone, but with big names behind it all, and it being a decent crossover, it's not that bad of a special anyway. So today, this special will be given a rating of 3 stars. So thank you for joining me. Like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Facebook or Twitter, and tune in next week for a new video.